differences and the same. Some of the things I would probably compare would be, we still have the 7 elementary schools. I think those were around back in when we went to school. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that the elementary schools used to be K through 6, I remember, and now it's K through 3, all the elementary schools. And so I would say back in, what, 2002, when did we start the intermediate schools?
12 years ago.
12 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
About 12 years ago, they built the intermediate schools where all the 4th through 6th graders go. And then I remember West has changed several times. Mm-hmm. Used to be 6th, 7th, and 8th. Then it was 7th and 8th. Then it was 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then it when I was there, I believe it was 7th, 8th, and 9th, if I remember right. And then the high school used to be 10th through 12th. So I remember that kind of changing back and forth. My oldest brother, which graduated in '84, I believe was the first graduating class that went all 4 years of the new high school. I remember him saying something about he was the first graduating class that went all 4 years at the new high school. Now not so new.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of things. You know, I remember the kindergarten experience that I was so excited to get to buy my little nap pad. So I could take my nap at kindergarten. I remember the letter. I still have my letter books.
Do you really?
I still have my letter books that I used in kindergarten. One thing I just remember being different is it was pretty much mostly desk instruction. It was at your desk, teacher up at the front of the class teaching. You get your worksheets. The teacher gives her instruction. You do your work. You hand it in. You get your grade. It was pretty basic. Nowadays, it's more. It's got to be interactive. You got to get the kids up and moving around. The kids, get the kids out of their desks. Kids sat more in groups. Do a lot of small group activities with kids. I remember when I was in elementary school, and I don't believe this was part of the music program, my 2nd grade teacher always did a play every year. And she put on a play every single year that we got to do. I remember the year I was in 2nd grade, it was Snow White and Sunday. And we don't see a lot of that anymore, like the kids doing any kind of acting or, the music. Kids still have music every other day. I'm trying to remember how it was when I was in school. I remember being in band in 5th grade, and that's still about the same. Kids can still enter band in the 5th grade. I'm trying to think of similarities and differences.
I'm sorry for interrupting the program, but since you're in the special needs area, there have been, I think, some big differences between special needs kids when you were in school.
Yeah, that's something else I was going to bring up too. Was I don't remember having special needs kids in my class. They were separate. I mean, they were taught in their own classroom. If they were to get any instruction, they went to that classroom to get their instruction, and then they came back to our class. And nowadays it's so much inclusion, and we want the kids included. We want them in the classrooms. I specifically the last several years have concentrated, in autism, and that's certainly been something that's changed too. Feels maybe estimated a perspective of what the knowledge, back then would have been of it as opposed to now. I think back then, I'm not even sure it was a term that was known, other than Rain Man. Back in the 80s, and everybody thought, oh, they're all savants. They're all these really smart people with these really great skills. I looked up some interesting research that back in the 80s, one of the statements said that the autistic disorder, this was 1987, the autistic disorder is rare occurring in fewer than 5 children per 10,000 births. That was in 1987, 5 births out of 10,000. The statistics now are even less than 1 in 100. I think the new research out is less than 1 in every 100. So that's huge change right there. Because the research has changed, the way that we're servicing the kids have changed, the way that we diagnose has changed. Just the whole, you wouldn't have even, seen the kids much in the community as you do now. In the classrooms, they're just all, kind of in classrooms together now. And I've seen it work well, and I've seen it work not so well. I'm an advocate of you put every child in an environment that's appropriate for them. If they belong in an inclusive classroom, if they belong with those kids all day, then that's where they need to be. But sometimes, I even get overwhelmed when I'm around people all day. If you have a kid that needs some kind of special instruction or instruction somewhere else, I think it's just whatever is appropriate for each kid. That's what I'm an advocate for. It doesn't always work that way, but that's what I just think every kid's needs are different. You need to meet their needs where they're at. But as far as special needs, I think it's changed tremendously. Like I said, I don't even from when I started teaching, it has changed. Remember that special ed classroom used to be out in one of the portables at MacArthur, and all the kids would go out there to receive their instruction. And now I remember teaching in Hugoton when I first started teaching there, as opposed to when I started teaching in Liberal. Hugoton was probably even a little farther along than Liberal was as far as inclusion. I think they started out calling it mainstreaming. At first it was mainstreaming, mainstream the kids, and then it turned into inclusion. But the big word when I went to college was mainstream. Kind of mainstream them in. Mainstreaming was, they might be in the classroom in the same building, but they're going to be getting their own instruction by a different teacher. And now it's more, we try to make it more inclusive for everybody. So, but the last thing I'm going to mention is I remember Mr. Maskus. I remember going to school, Mr. Maskus was there, and by golly, he ran that school by his rules, and you were going to follow his rules, and that was his school, and
that was the high school, right?
Yeah, he was the principal at the high school, and he ran that school. It was a tight ship. You didn't dare misbehave. You didn't dare, do it because you did not want to face Mr. Maskus. But I remember he was out and about a lot. I remember his presence. His presence was known among the kids, but it was feared to me. I don't know about all the other kids, but I was like, I didn't want to have to be in his office on a bad note. But I felt like he ran a pretty successful system, and a lot has changed. I think a lot of control has been taken away from administrators sometimes. That maybe they need to have a little more control of their schools and be able to do things. But that's just how things have changed. It's all got to work together. So you probably know.